Welcome back to a return of the Broken Banners battle reports. Today we're going to have Sam playing Ned Stark against my Renly Baratheon King in the South. Before I get too deep into the battle report, though, I just want to do a couple community shoutouts. First one's going to be to Mickey, who has given us a ton of assets and resources to make some better quality battle reports. So if you guys see a market improvement, thank him. If you see a deprovement, blame me. Sorry. Second one is to Rogue State Games, who has been very helpful in helping us get it back onto our feet and has made an appearance via my Boo Boo hat. There's been a brief lapse in the amount of battle reports we were able to do. Without getting too much into it, I got run over by a car about a month ago, but we are back at it. So without further ado, let's get on into the battle report. And I'm going to be playing Baratheons today. It's my first time playing Baratheons this season, so I'm really excited to try out Renly, King in the South, in his signature Rainbow Guard. They are now 6 points. They have resilience and a really nice stat block and some very unique abilities that I'm going to have to do my best to try and remember and make sure I make the most value out of. Renly himself is going to be bringing Swift Strike, as well as Claim to the Throne, which is going to be giving him control of crowns and letters for the purposes of all abilities and tactics cards that I'm controlling. I'm also bringing Riders of Highgarden. They are a 6-point Lance Cavalry unit. They're hitting on 4s, but they're speed 6. They're pretty lightly armored at 5-up armor and 6-up morale, but Lance Cavalry are Lance Cavalry, so those are going to be my shock cav. Then I've got Stag Knights, who have also been recently tweaked. They're 7 points, throwing 7, 6, 5, with a pretty solid stat block, but their claim to fame is the fact that they get progressively stronger every round of the game, and they have the Order Resilience to match up with the Rainbow Guard, so I have 2 different resilient units to work with. Finally, I've got Rose Knights with Thornwatch Sentinel. Rose Knights are a classic of the Renly side Baratheons. They've got Deadly Bloom, which is every time they heal, an engaged unit suffers a wound. They have Perseverance and Valor, so every time they make a melee attack, an enemy is going to be suffering a wound. They're saving 3-5. They're pretty slow at 4-up saves, but their dice profile is pretty solid, and Thornwatch Sentinel means they're going to be able to ignore the negative effects of all terrain, and they have Dauntless to give them another way to ping damage through. For NCUs, I have Courtney Penrose, another staple of the Renly side. He's got 3 order tokens that I can use to put some additional control and exertion over the tactics board, or else my opponent's going to have to choose to give me some powerful healing effect. I've also got Shira Errol, who's going to give me a small extra bonus depending on which of the 3 zones I claim. And for Renly's side, I want all 3 of those zones. So she's probably going to give me some consistent value. And then Olenna, probably one of the most hated NCUs in the entirety of the Baratheon arsenal, has the ability to completely shut off an NCU after she claims a zone or punish them for claiming a zone.
Hi, I am Sam, and I am playing Starks. Leading the Stark army today is Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell, and he is in his Eddard's Honor Guard. They are a great unit with going down fighting, Winter's Bite, which gives them critical blow and ups their stats roll as they lose ranks. They hit hard and they have a good defense. I'm also bringing for some Cav, some House Umber Ravengers. These are a newer unit with speed 6, and what's best about them is they lose ranks. They go up their dice rank from 6 to 8 dice on attack. Good morale, 5 armor, so they'll die quick, but I put a Fortune Seeker to give them Dauntless and motivated by coin, hoping to get that extra attack on them. They come with Sundering, and if I attack a unit with more ranks, they also get Vicious. Coming with some infantry support, I have Stark Bowmen. These units are unpopular among stats, but I love them. I put Jockin in them to give them precision on their bow, on their long-range shot. He also gives Widower's Protector in the unit of House Umber Berserkers with the Widower to give them Sundering, and this unit's the same. They will always attack with higher dice as they lose ranks, and their stats with a new ability, Berserker's Fervor, allows them their stats of armor and morale to go down to 3 and 3 when they're down to the last rank. For NCUs, I have Raj Kasau, who is bringing martial expertise. He will put a vulnerable token if he claims the swords, but he comes with 2 tokens that I can expend on any melee attack to reroll if I need to. I'm also bringing the classic Sansa Stark, who will let me redraw cards from the NCU board or from her special one-time token ability. And then Howland Reed to bring Hunter's Guide, Gil. He will allow me to influence enemy units to lower their attack dice roll and also make terrain hindering.
We're playing the newest game mode that's been added, and it's a tournament official game mode, so you might see it at events near you. It's called Banners and Butchery. I'll admit, we still aren't running Banners and Butchery here in New Jersey, because we think that the game mode probably needs a little bit more refining and tweaking before it's ready for competitive play. Still, we decided to try it out on video just to see exactly how it plays, and to show everyone else how it might look if someone else is nervous about jumping into the water and they're hoping for a battle report to show them what the game plays like. Banners and Butchery has a really unique deployment setup. You deploy all the way up to the halfway mark. With 24 inches for your deployment zone, the game is split into two halves, so you have a lot of flexibility to either support your offensive play style or your defensive play style. Notably, you still need to be at least 1 inch away from an enemy unit when you deploy, so no, you can't start off deployed and engaged, which is probably for the best. You start off with 4 objectives on the map, 2 on each side, or in each deployment zone, and they're 12 inches away from the deployment side and 12 inches away from any flank edge. Like Honed and Ready, all terrain is okay to place except for impassable terrain, and it needs to be at least 6 inches away from a table edge or another terrain piece, but you can still put objectives on terrain. Scoring in this game mode is very unique. You don't score through victory through combat, so killing units innately doesn't give you victory points. Congratulations, Raiders, you're insignificant again. Instead, you score victory points by destroying enemy objective tokens. In order to destroy an objective token, you need to have a unit completely over one of the objective tokens, and then it needs to make an attack action to destroy it. You can only destroy enemy objective tokens. Objective tokens in your deployment zone are friendly objective tokens in the enemy's deployment zone are enemy objective tokens. After an objective token is destroyed, the player who owned that token places a new objective token fully within their deployment zone and at least 6 inches away from any other objective token and table edge. For scoring, you score 3 victory points every time you destroy an enemy objective token. You gain an additional point if your commander's unit is the one to destroy that objective token, and you score 1 victory point each time your commander's unit destroys an enemy unit with an ability or an attack. So there's still a way to score some points by killing units, but it needs to be done with your commander. The best way I can simplify this game mode is, imagine that each player starts off with 2 sandcastles on their side of the beach. You want to destroy your enemy sandcastles, make them cry, and when your sandcastles are destroyed, you can build a new one, and you're probably going to want to put that as far away from the enemy units as you can. This game mode is really unique, not only in the way that you score victory points and the nature of the objectives, but also how much emphasis it puts on mobility, as if the game didn't do that enough as it is. Outflank and anything that could put a unit on the flank edge is extremely powerful because it allows you to warp behind enemy lines. It also heavily favors cavalry and anybody who gains additional maneuvers or mobility because there is a significant action investment in order to gain victory points. It's not enough to sit on a victory point, and you do have to fully overlap it. You also need to make an attack to destroy it. So units that have a cavalry maneuver can move on to that point and then destroy it in that same activation. That's extremely powerful. I won't get too deep into my own thoughts and the strategy on it, but one of the concerns I have with this game mode in a competitive setting is I really just don't understand how you can beat a competent free folk player that has a list that's well suited to this map. I'll have to find out the hard way some other time, but right now, it's Starks versus Baratheons, and we have a really cool matchup with 2 different Honor Guard armies that I'm excited to see. Sam wins the coin toss for terrain placement and goes for a classic placement. Weirwood in the center. Can't go wrong with it. I put stakes on a skewed end of the battlefield, though. I think stakes are going to be a really powerful tool in this game mode because it can take so many actions to deal with it. He puts a forest somewhere around the middle of the deployment zone to interrupt some charges, and his archers don't care about it. I put a low wall to interrupt his charges on the opposite end, so no one's getting any good charges except down the center. Sam places his Umber Ravagers down the center to take advantage of that, and I place my Rose Knights far away from them because the Ravagers will just tear them apart, and they still have a lot of room to work with. He then places Ned in his Honor Guard, also near the center, a very scary crit blow unit that has got some powerful charges, and I place the Rose Knights in between those 2 down the center because, go ahead, charge the Rose Knights, I dare you. He places his Stark Bowmen onto the low wall to give them some benefit in defense and have some pretty good range of the battlefield, and I'm going to put Stag Knights to the next to the Rose Knights to give some threat towards the squishy Ravagers. He puts Berserkers near Jokin's unit, that way he's got some coverage for them, and I place Renly on the opposite end of the Berserkers. With terrain done, the battle gets underway. Sam wins the coin toss for turn order, so he's going to go ahead and put Roderick onto the swords. Roderick puts out a vulnerable token whenever he claims the swords, and that's going to go onto the Rainbow Guard, who the Stark Bowmen are going to shoot. With Jokin in them, they've got precision, so even a resilience unit's a little nervous, and with the vulnerable token, he's going to get 2 wounds through, though I passed the panic test. I rolled a 1 on my armor save, so I do get weakened. However, I'm just going to take Shira Errol and put her onto bags. So the bags are going to heal the Rainbow Guard and take the weaken off of them, and Shira's effect is going to let me take that weaken token that I took off and put it somewhere else, like back onto those bowmen that haven't actually activated yet. After that, Sam's going to activate Howland to Reed, and he's going to put him onto the horses. He's going to influence Rose Knights with their effect to make them hit a little bit worse next time they make their attack this round. And then he's going to use the horse zone to maneuver his Ravagers over towards that point and try and start flanking my Stag Knights. After that, I'm going to pass with Courtney, since I'm the second player and I want to make sure that I'm maintaining my activation tempo. He's then going to neglect the tactics board, and he's going to have Ned charge in, which I think is a little silly of a decision against the Rose Knights, but then he plays Winter is Coming and Devastating Impact. Winter is Coming doesn't stop Final Strike because it doesn't target the defender, but it does stop Baratheon Conviction, which is a really nice tool for Rose Knights to have. So he's going to go in, use that vulnerable token, and walk out with a total 6 wounds dealt to my Rose Knights, though I passed my panic test, so I heal 1 back, taking an effective 5. Still, my Final Strike is going to deal 6 hits, and he gets lucky and makes 0 failed saves, so he's just going to walk that off. I take Olenna, targeting Sansa with the second part of her ability, put her on letters, weaken Ned, draw my 2 cards. Bowmen are going to make an attack, and after the weaken token, deal an effective 0 wounds. I rolled 1-1, so I become weakened, but again I pass the panic test, and I just heal it right back out. So essentially his activation does nothing other than deal a wound to his own unit and put a weakened token on me, which I think is a pretty good trade. The initial charge into my Rose Knights admittedly did a lot more than I was hoping it would, and the Final Strike also didn't do half as much as I was hoping to. But I still have Sustained Assault in my hand, and Rose Knights are starting off engaged, so I play that to give them rerolls and highest attack die value. They're hitting on 4s because the Howland influence gets expended, and then the weakened token gets used, which nets me a total of 0 hits. I don't even get them to armor saves, I just deal 0 hits. That was a little depressing. Sam passes with Sansa because crowns are the only zone left, and quite frankly, it's probably not worth the trouble of the Olenna effect. I maneuver march my Riders of Highgarden to get a little bit closer and threaten Ned's flank, and try and bait the Berserkers to charging them over the low wall. Sam tries to match my cavalry maneuver by moving the Ravagers over into the flank of my Stag Knights, and that would be really terrifying since they'd be able to charge right after, but I have the best card in the game, Overconfidence, which allows me, after he makes his cavalry maneuver, for my Stag Knights to charge. And then I play Stag's Wit to put the vulnerable token that I would be gaining onto him since I've got the letters. Overconfidence deals 2 hits for every rank I have, so total 6 hits. I pop through 5 wounds after the vulnerable token, which is exactly how many I want, since I don't want to drop him down a rank, because that's actually going to buff him since it's a Ravager Umber unit. So, for the courtesy of him activating cavalry maneuvering, I deal 5 wounds. He attacks me, I use resilience, and I take 4 wounds, which is still a lot to punch through the resilience, which shows how hard-hitting the Ravagers are, but then the Stag Knights attack right back and deal a pretty heavy amount of damage. The Berserkers fall for the bait, and they charge my Riders of Highgarden. Riders of Highgarden don't get too badly dinged up because of that low wall, and then my Renly Rainbow Guard are going to charge on in, and they're going to deal a significant amount of damage using one of their banners to put out some tokens. I just want to keep them weakened so my Riders can survive, and the Rally Cry is going to top them up a little bit too. Jokin's going to be able to shoot my Rainbow Guard after that, though, because he's got Widower's Protector, and I'm going to take a wound, because saving on 3s is pretty solid, and this time he doesn't get any precision hits. With that, round 1 ends, and sure enough, butchery has been earned in the name of banners and butchery, because starting off round 2, early on, Olenna's going to take the swords, shutting off Sansa for the round with her first ability, and the Stag Knights are going to kill the Ravagers, getting a pretty lucky hit, but they only need to deal 4 wounds, so it wasn't that lucky. I'm going to surge forth to start threatening Ned, because Ned is an incredibly intimidating figure. He is probably one of the few units in the game in his honor guard that can duel out Rose Knights with some form of Dauntless. It's honestly incredible. Fury for the Fallen is an incredibly powerful card. He hasn't used it yet, which I'm pretty grateful for, but that doesn't mean he's not going to draw onto it if he takes letters to the next round. Ned's going to get going while he can, making an attack to heal up the Berserkers, saving them from a big charge coming in from the flank with the Rainbow Guard. I'm going to take 1 wound off the attack and then 1 wound off the panic test that I got re-rolled into off the panic token, so I don't even get a chip away at Ned in the process. And he's going to play lead by example onto those Berserkers to buff up their morale. After that, I'm going to activate Shira, put her onto crowns, and zap the bows. I get a couple of wounds off with the bows, but that wasn't even my goal. What really was my goal is the Rose Knights are going to heal 1, deal 1 off of healing, go down fighting is going to take that wound back off, and I'm going to take 1 wound. So, in total, I really only take 1 wound off Ned and 2 off the bows, which is worth it considering the Crown Zone usually does nothing. After that, he's going to activate Howland Reed. I'm using Courtney on the bags and the letters, so I heal if he takes either of the zones, and he's going to use the horses to remaneuver those bows and get them a little bit safer away from Renly. After that, I'm going to activate Courtney and put him on the bags, using him to heal up the Rose Knights and dealing another wound through, and getting them back up to 3 ranks so they're throwing their full 7 dice. Sam's going to activate Roderick, using him on the last remaining zone. I get to use my Courtney token, though, so if Roddy takes letters, I'm going to heal D3 plus 2. Sam's going to make that choice, valuing the cards more than he does the heal, and I get a max heal of 5, which is pretty incredible. So he draws 2 and weakens my Stag Knights that are getting ready to charge in the rear. It's not on camera, but we do measure it with a laser. And I get to put heals out all over the place, pinging another wound off Ned. That sets me up for the Stag Knight charge, who get a pretty abysmal roll after the weaken token, and I'm only going to deal 2 wounds. After that, Ned starts doing his dastardly tricks, and he's going to hit me with Northern Defiance and Fury for the Fallen. Northern Defiance is going to deal wounds for each of his missing ranks, so I'm going to be taking a pretty heavy amount off of that, plus the go down fighting. Then, on top of that, I've got to deal with Fury for the Fallen, and I have to pop Resilience to try and hold my way through. It puts out a lot of hits on those dice because with the crit blow there, it's getting pretty zesty. I use Baratheon Justice, though, to set him up with a weakened token and a vulnerable token. After that, he's going to activate the bows and try and finish off my Stag Knights to at least take them and maybe bring it down to a fair fight with Ned against the Rose Knights. I get really lucky with that weakened token I had set up on them beforehand, though, and I'm only going to take 1 wound on the Stag Knights. After that, Rose Knights are going to attack. They're going to take 1 wound just for the courtesy of making the attack action, and then their attack is going to punch through with the help of the vulnerable token and finish off Ned. That's a really big swing for me. I was expecting Ned to take a very long time to chip away, but getting the Stag Knights through and dealing the damage that I did, even though it was rather meager, all things considered, was enough for me to put Ned into the ground and gain the upper hand. Go down fighting puts my Stag Knights into a very precarious position at 1 wound, and I surge forth the Rose Knights to start collapsing on the remainder of his units. If you haven't noticed, we're kind of just ignoring the objectives at this point, and I'm just going to try and table them. I think my chances are pretty good, assuming I can get some healing onto the Stag Knights sooner rather than later, because 1 lucky 6 against them with those bows is going to put them down, and Berserkers are really scary, especially when they've gotten a keyword like Sundering. And as cool as my Rainbow Guard are, they've only got 8 wounds and he's got a precision unit on the table. I don't want to mess around with that too much. So the Berserkers are going to activate and they're going to attack my Riders of Highgarden. The Weaken's going to help me out a lot and they're only going to deal 4 wounds. I Final Strike and having the crowns, it's going to give him -1 to his armor, so I get all of that damage through, which is really helpful. And it's going to set me up for Renly to go charge into the side. I'm going to use one of my Baratheon banners to give me Crit Blow and Sundering. The Rally Cry is going to heal up the Stag Knights, and I'm going to deal a whopping 6 wounds onto the Berserkers, leaving them at their last. At this point, they are their most powerful. They're throwing 9 dice on 3s with Sundering thanks to Widower, and they're saving 3/3. They still actually have Lead by Example, which won't be relevant for long, but that does give them +2 morale, so they have a 1-up morale at this point in time. Renly's got the ability to retreat, so he gets out of there, and the Riders are going to make their attack. I figure, statistically speaking, I can deal 1 wound considering they've got Sundering. Unfortunately, that's not the way that happens. Jokin finally gets to do Jokin things, though, and he shoots my Riders for the trouble of attacking my Berserkers. He wasn't able to do that against Renly because Renly was able to move far out of his field of vision and wasn't able to make an attack against him. Round 3 starts the same way that round 2 started. somebody dying off of Sword's activation. He plays Northern Ferocity to make sure that he gets that damage on through. My Riders of Highgarden dies, and he surges forth, thinking that he's going to be able to evade the slow-moving Rose Knights and the almost dead Stag Knights. He has no idea that I drew Overconfidence when I refilled my hand, though, and I'm going to go ahead and play that. He's a little skeptical about the angle, so he whips out the laser again, having gotten bitten by it before with the Stag Knights in the rear, and sure enough, my positioning is on point yet again, so I'm going to be able to get the Overconfidence charge into him. There's no flank bonus because it's just hits, it's not an attack, but it's still 4 hits since I've got 2 ranks in the Rainbow Guard that are going to land on into him. And that's going to be enough to put him in the ground. All of that happened on his turn because Overconfidence is when he makes a maneuver. It's not an attack, so Jokun doesn't attack me, but I don't get to surge forth. Start of my turn, I'm going to play Knights of Summer, which allows my Stag Knights to make a morale test, which they pass. The card itself does nothing, but it allows me to afterwards play Baratheon Conviction, which is going to heal me 2 wounds and set me up for a really big charge into his flank. On my activation, I use my Stag Knights to hit him there, and with Criplo and Vicious, I deal a whopping 8 wounds into him. He's just going to activate his bows at that point, dealing 0 wounds after I use Resilience to knock out his 1 hit that he manages to go through. And with that, I take the crowns, zap him, finish him off for a rather humiliating death. That was probably one of the fastest games of Song that I've ever played to completion, which is definitely an appeal to banners and butchery. Overall, I've got mixed feelings about the game mode, and I'd love to hear what you guys all think about the game mode. While you're at it, go ahead and give us any feedback you'd like about the videos. We recently got some comments that the rock music we've been using in the background hasn't been quite as hype as we thought, so while I'm looking for some exhilarating, good old-fashioned bluegrass banjo music to use in the background, I'm keeping it quiet. If you guys would like some kind of music or any other kind of suggestions to the videos, please go ahead and drop us a comment or send us a message on Discord or on YouTube. Again, thank you guys for watching, and we always appreciate the community support.